All right, let's see how long I can form coherent sentences before the pain pillars kick in.
Pain pillars kick in. Pain pillars kick in.
It's already started. I said pain pillars. Oh no. We are back and it is absolutely miserable right now after surgery. You can call me Geriatric Wade because I have my own personal walker nowadays. By the way, just in case you guys wanted to see it, there it is. Look at how skinny my chicken legs are. And speaking of my chicken legs, one thing I wouldn't want to have happen right now is for someone to kick me in said chicken legs, and it's kind of a perfect segue for what we're talking about today. Jake Paul has decided to start training in some form of kicking and MMA. He's been hanging around LA, going to Laker games, going to restaurants with his brother in KSI, and you would have to think at least someone decided to order some beef. But outside of that, Jake also posted a video of him doing some low kicks, implying that Jake might actually get into MMA, and I think that's a terrible idea. Here's why. All right, so Jake put out this video. It said first day of training kicks, and of course Jake tagged Bellator MMA and PFL MMA, two other promotions that are somewhat known in the US, not necessarily competitors to the UFC. Jake basically saying, I'm not tagging the UFC because they're not worth the time, but I want to see what Jake's kicking's looking like, and then we'll explain why this is probably not a good idea. Solid. Solid. Listen, guys, these aren't bad kicks. And this is not the first time, by the way, Jake has done this. I know he, in his post here, it says, first day training kicks, doubted every step of the way, but kicked down the doors of the... By the way, this is like some spoken word stuff. First day training kicks, doubted every step of the way, kicked down the doors of the doubters. That way you have nothing to say. But as far as Jake's kicks, does a good job stepping in, twist on the lead foot, turning over, snapping the leg. Does catch it a bit with his foot, but that's mostly shin. Does have the lead arm up to protect his head. Does swing the back arm. Everything looks somewhat decent. I mean, again, first time training, these are decent kicks. This one, he doesn't lay in as much. The second one's solid too, though. Again, straight across, nice angle, good twist on the lead foot. That heel comes off the ground. We get a nice twist to the hip. Not really much to say other than these don't look bad. All right, so like I said, the kicks aren't bad, guys. Those are not terrible kicks, but I don't think Jake should be fighting in MMA. And I'm not saying that's what he's doing here. In fact, I think Jake is just doing this to grab headlines and to get people to say, oh, look, he might go into MMA and Dana's going to lose out on him because Dana was mean to him. But if he did decide to go this route, I think it's a terrible idea because what does Jake have to gain? What does MMA give Jake that he doesn't already have in boxing? Talking about a sport that requires a lot more variety of skills. I know people like to bring up Jake's wrestling background, but Jake wasn't even close to an elite wrestler in the high school ranks. Jake has no official accreditation as to the wrestling he did in school. So when people throw out he was an all-state wrestler, Ohio State, that's not true. Although Logan, as a 5th place finalist in the state of Ohio, that's a pretty high number. And I'm not saying that Jake can't wrestle. I'm just saying that's not necessarily a qualifier for him to just jump into MMA at 23, 24 years old with really no other background on a high level. Unless he just wants to prove a point, say he can go and fight in Bellator and PFL. And yeah, they'll probably throw tomato cans at him, a bunch of guys that he would have an advantage over, whether it's just with his rudimentary wrestling or his somewhat decent boxing ability at this point. Those things can be done and he can win fights, but why would he fight those fights? We've already seen what happens when Jake is fighting a guy that most people don't care to see him fight again or at all. Even though he sold 300,000, that's still a pretty damn good number. How many times would that trick get over? If you're going to throw Jake into MMA, he's not going to just be able to fight cans over and over and somehow be a draw. I think Jake has a really good thing going with boxing here. He might have just worked his way into a Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. fight, so why jinx that? God forbid Jake's high school wrestling and his boxing aren't enough to beat one of these guys who's a no-name, and he goes in there and gets tapped or he gets smashed or he gets laid on for 3 rounds, whatever it is, and loses. You not only just killed Jake as an MMA fighter, but you killed him as a pay-per-view draw. And even if he came back to boxing, it's just not a good look. So like I said, I don't think Jake is going to be fighting MMA anytime soon. I don't see it benefiting Jake monetarily. Again, I don't really see who he's gonna draw with there. Maybe a Dylan Dennis fight, but even then, I don't really know how much that draws with Dylan just falling off a fucking cliff. So like I said, I don't think that Jake is trying to actually go into MMA. I think this is more just creating a headline, keeping him in the news without him having to announce a fight, him having to box. This dude put out a 4-second video. It got close to 1 million views. I'm talking about it. You guys are all talking about it. He understands what he's doing, but you guys let me know down below. What do you think of this? I'm starting to pass out as I'm speaking, so I'm gonna go take a nap because my leg is on fucking fire and it feels like I'm in the
Fiery pits of hell.
So I'm gonna get out of here. What do you guys think? Would Jake make a good MMA fighter? If he had started about 10 years ago, I would say, yeah. Right now, I don't know, but if he's serious about adding some new weaponry to his arsenal and going Rockefeller Center Rockettes with the kicks, maybe in 2022 we get Jake Paul's MMA debut. Guess we'll find out.